When love meets hardship, even the simplest act can become a miracle. After a fierce storm leaves Linda's kitchen in ruins, Quang, though struggling financially, decides to rebuild it with his own hands. Through days of sweat, effort, and quiet devotion, the broken kitchen is transformed into a warm, shining space filled with hope and love. This is not just a story about fixing a home, it's about rebuilding hearts. Watch till the end to feel the power of kindness, and don't forget to subscribe for more heartfelt stories like this one. The storm had raged through the night, roaring like an angry beast tearing at everything in its path. By morning, the little village was soaked in silence, broken branches scattered across the road, puddles reflecting a dull gray sky, and the faint smell of damp earth lingering in the air. Quang walked quickly down the muddy path toward Linda's house, his heart heavy with worry. He had heard the roof of her kitchen might have collapsed during the rain, and knowing how fragile the old wooden frame was, he feared the worst. When he pushed open the creaking door, the sight before him stopped him cold. The kitchen, once filled with warmth and the comforting smell of Linda's home-cooked meals, was now a picture of ruin. The roof leaked in several places, letting thin streams of rainwater fall steadily into pots and pans below. The walls were streaked with dark stains, the plaster peeling away, and the shelves had started to warp from the moisture. The small wooden table where they used to share breakfast now leaned helplessly to one side, its legs swollen from the water. Linda stood there quietly, a faded towel in her hands as she tried to wipe the puddles that kept forming faster than she could dry them. When she saw Quang, she gave a soft, weary smile, the kind that tried to hide how much her heart was breaking. "It's all right," she said gently. "I can still cook here. Maybe just move the stove to the corner where it's dry." Her voice trembled slightly, betraying the strength she was trying to show. Quang felt a knot tighten in his chest. He knew things had been hard for both of them lately. Work was scarce, the economy slow, and every coin had to be stretched to cover food and bills. But seeing the woman he loved standing in that broken kitchen, trying to stay strong when everything around her was falling apart, stirred something deep inside him. He stepped closer, reaching out to steady her hands. "Linda," he said softly, "you shouldn't have to live like this." She shook her head, forcing another fragile smile. "It's just a roof, Quang. We've seen worse storms." But he couldn't agree. To him, it wasn't just a roof. It was the heart of her home, the place where laughter and warmth had always lived, and he couldn't bear to see it ruined. He looked around once more, the dripping sound echoing like a quiet reminder of how time and hardship had worn them both down. In that moment, Quang made a silent decision. No matter how tight things were, he would find a way. He would rebuild this kitchen, not just to fix the roof, but to give Linda back a little piece of hope she so dearly deserved. That morning, as the sun broke through the clouds for the first time in days, a quiet determination lit up in Quang's eyes. The storm might have destroyed the kitchen, but it had also awakened something stronger, his will to protect the woman he loved. The very next morning, Quang rose before dawn. The world was still wrapped in mist, and the smell of wet soil filled the air. He barely had any money left, but he didn't hesitate. With quiet determination, he went into the village and called upon two old friends, local builders he trusted. "It's just a small kitchen," he told them, "but it means everything to her." They agreed to help for a modest sum, touched by the sincerity in his voice. By sunrise, the three men stood before Linda's battered kitchen, sleeves rolled up, ready to bring it back to life. The first sounds of hammers echoed through the morning fog. Quang climbed up the rickety ladder, helping the workers remove the rotting sheets of corrugated metal that once formed the roof. Every piece that fell made a loud clatter, like a page turning in their shared story. His hands blistered from gripping rough wood and rusted nails, but he barely noticed. Sweat mixed with dust and rainwater, streaking his shirt and brow. From the doorway, Linda watched silently, her heart swelling with emotion. She wanted to stop him, to say he didn't have to do this, but she could see it in his eyes. This was his promise, his way of showing love without words. As the day went on, the little yard filled with the rhythm of rebuilding. One man mixed cement, another lifted new planks into place, while Quang measured and held each beam steady. Every nail hammered in was a note of devotion. Every bucket of sand poured, a symbol of care. The scent of sawdust mingled with the cool wind that swept through the garden, bringing with it a strange, comforting peace. Neighbors began to wander by, curious at first, then smiling as they saw what was happening. "Quang's fixing Linda's kitchen," someone whispered. "That man really has a good heart." Linda couldn't help but join in. She brought out a pot of tea, poured cups for the men, and set aside some fresh bread she'd managed to bake despite the chaos. Her laughter, soft and musical, returned little by little as she chatted with them, teasing Quang for being covered head to toe in dust. He only grinned, brushing a smear of cement from his cheek. "It's just part of the job," he said lightly, though inside, every smile from her made his tiredness fade away. By late afternoon, the outline of a new kitchen began to take shape. The old leaks were gone, the walls stood firm, and the new roof glimmered under the golden light of sunset. It wasn't finished yet. There was still painting, flooring, and final touches to go, but the transformation was undeniable. Linda stood beside Quang as the last nails were hammered in, her fingers brushing lightly against his. "It's beautiful already," she whispered. He looked at her, breathless from exhaustion, yet full of quiet pride. He said, "Just wait. Tomorrow it'll be perfect." And as the sky turned crimson behind them, both of them knew that something far greater than a kitchen was being built. A home made from effort, love, and hope reborn after the storm. A week later, the kitchen stood reborn. No longer the dark, leaky space it once was, but a warm, sunlit corner of hope. The scent of fresh paint still lingered in the air, blending with the aroma of jasmine that drifted in from the garden. Quang had worked every single day since the storm, from dawn till dusk, refusing to rest until everything was perfect. Now, as he stepped back to admire the result, his heart swelled with quiet satisfaction. The walls gleamed white and clean, the roof solid and secure, and the wooden shelves he had built by hand looked strong enough to last a lifetime. Linda stood beside him, barefoot on the cool new tiles, her eyes wide with disbelief. It's beautiful," she whispered, her voice trembling as she turned slowly, taking in every detail. The sunlight spilled through the window, glinting off the polished counter where she had once struggled to keep things dry during the storms. "You really did all this for me." Quang smiled, not the kind of smile that sought praise, but one that came from deep within. "For us," he corrected softly. "This kitchen isn't just yours. It's where we'll share mornings again, where the smell of your cooking will make this house feel alive." His words carried a tenderness that made her chest tighten. She wanted to speak, to thank him properly, but her emotions tangled into silence. Instead, she reached out and touched his hand, rough, calloused, still marked with small cuts from days of labor, and held it tightly. That evening, as twilight settled over the village, the first meal was cooked in the new kitchen. The gentle clatter of pots and the hiss of oil meeting the pan filled the space with familiar sounds. Linda moved gracefully, humming softly under her breath, while Quang sat at the table, watching her as though afraid to blink and lose the moment. When she finally set down a bowl of hot soup before him, she said quietly, "I don't have much to give you, Quang, but I hope this meal can say what my words can't." He looked at her, eyes shining in the dim light. "You've already given me more than enough. You've given me a reason." Outside, the crickets began to sing. The kitchen windows glowed with the soft amber of the lantern hanging above the stove, and laughter soon followed. Gentle, real, the kind that only two people who had weathered storms together could share. When Linda leaned against him, resting her head on his shoulder, he felt the quiet peace he had longed for finally settle into his bones. The storm had taken much from them: time, comfort, security. But it also gave something priceless in return. In rebuilding her kitchen, Quang had rebuilt something within himself: faith, love, and the unspoken truth that sometimes the most beautiful things in life are born from ruin. And as the night deepened, the little kitchen, once broken and forgotten, glowed like a promise that love, no matter how humble, could always build anew.